Today I'm gonna interview Kellie Fitzgerald. Gerald. That's how you said it, right?
Right, it's Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm. Can you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. My name is Kellie Fitzgerald. I am primarily a writer. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a variety of different businesses, but I always come back to writing. I tell people I've been writing since I could hold a pen, and that's pretty much accurate. I do a lot of animal rescue, which plays into everything that I write in one way or another. So that's pretty much who I am. I live in the middle of nowhere with more gardens and animals than any sane person would ever want to attempt.
Speaking of, I was thinking about, but thank you for the interview. I was thinking about, how does it feel like you said live in a middle of nowhere? You say?
Uh-huh.
How does it feel? Because I want to do that one day.
You know, when I drove onto this property, there was nothing here. We built our house. We put everything that is here. There was nothing here. And when I talk about it now, I remember it as being a very exciting time. I had been very, very sick at that time too. So there were a number of challenges, but I remember it very fondly. And yet when I talk to family members or friends who were around during that time, they think, oh, I didn't think you would survive that. And it just, you have to have the personality for it. My nearest real grocery store that's not like a convenience store is an hour away. And I don't mind it at all, because when I lived in the Bay Area, I'm from San Francisco area, I drove an hour to get places all the time. And maybe, you know, I was stuck in traffic for 45 minutes out of this hour. So at least now I'm moving. It's beautiful scenery. And I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I love it. But you have to have the right frame of mind. You have to be a person that likes to drive, and you have to be a person that likes to be by themselves a lot.
It sounds like you're an introvert, are you?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. You know, there's a common misconception with introverts that we don't like people, and that's not true. I love people. I really do. But I'm not a person who enjoys a lot of small talk. I would rather know what you feel about the universe as a whole. I'd rather know who you are at your deepest level, not hi, what did you do for lunch today? So that's basically an introvert, I have found. And most of my friends are also introverts. So
well, yeah. But thank you so much for that. Finally, I can talk to like an actual extrovert, right? I mean, not extrovert, introverted. Because you know, I keep telling people, you know, people keep pushing me because I read I think you have read the book The Quiet Power from
yeah.
And we live in society where they push you to be an extroverted, and yes. They think that people think that we don't like people, but it's like I feel it sometimes. Oh, sorry about that. I need to plug it in before it. Okay, people think that we you know, like you need to go out all the time, right?
Right.
But when like you just say, like we just don't want small talk. We want like intellectual, right? I don't want to say it. I call it, because it releases, when we get into this intellectual conversation, it releases a lot of dopamine, and I like that. Right. And I think that people don't understand it's okay to be introverted, right? And people expect us that we should do this. We don't have to do this if we don't like to. Like, for instance, I love reading books. That's how I recharge my energy. I don't like.
Right.
It's not that I don't like. I just don't. Because you know, people think that in order to thrive in this world, you have to be able to like, to go out and do things. You don't have to.
Right.
Like, and like yourself. How do you spend your time, like when you're how do you, like, what do you find meaningful in a conversation to you?
I like to know what people's experiences are. You know, I'm very, very fortunate in that I live with a place that, even though it's in the middle of nowhere, there are a wide variety of people that have chosen to live here. And I like to know, I was just talking to someone the other day who just came back from Thailand. And because Laehil The Elephants is set in Thailand, I was really thrilled to talk to her. And we sat down and we talked about Thailand, and we looked at pictures that she had taken, and we talked about elephants, and we talked about the different people that she had met and what their beliefs are, and that most of them are Buddhist, and yet some of them are not. And, you know, just the whole culture of Thailand and what they like to eat, and different birds that she saw, different frogs that she had taken pictures of to identify later. And we sat there for an hour and a half. And before we realized, people around us had gathered and they were listening to what we were talking about, because it was, you know, what did the noodles taste like? What was the consistency? How did they prepare them? You know, she had these pictures of these big, huge, what to me looked like incredibly large pans that they were doing one long, very long noodle on, and then they would cut the noodle into pieces. And that was fascinating to me. And other people around me were like, why are you spending 5 minutes talking about the noodles? But it was because it was an experience. And I like to know about people's experiences and how did they relate to those experiences. You know, it's very easy for someone who is in the United States to not realize what other countries are like and what the day-to-day lives are like in those other countries. And I think in the US, we've been very, very, very spoiled in that we take things for granted. And that, I think that whole small talk thing, you know, things are what people want. And things are not what is important. What is important is the human experience and what we do in our lives and how many other lives we touch in positive ways. And as long as we are conditioned to be on the surface, you know, and you don't really want to know how someone is. So, you know, the common thing is, well, how are you? Well, I'm fine. And this person may not really be fine. Well, I want to know how that person really is. And I think most introverts are like that. You know, you can go through your life in the US and not really understand what it is to be human and what it is to have that human experience, because we're so conditioned to things. And that's not what it's about. It's not about the stuff. It's about being human. And sometimes being human means being kind to animals. You know, people have the misunderstanding that humanity is only humans. Well, I like to say it's also about how humanity interacts, you know, relates to other species. Sometimes the most human people I meet all day long is a stray dog. You know, I've had that experience several times where you look at an animal, and I've always been sort of an animal activist, and you look at an animal sometimes, and particularly elephants, they take care of each other. And I think we've all seen the video of the baby elephant that fell into a water trough, and the whole herd was sort of helping this baby elephant get out. You know, and elephants are very matriarchal and very in touch with each other. One of the things that I learned about elephants, which was fascinating to me, was that they find each other over great distances by feeling the vibrations of the ground. So they can tell when another elephant herd is near because they feel those vibrations. And that's fascinating. If you talk to deaf people, they also feel vibrations. You know, my grandson, who inspired this whole story, is deaf. And yet, when he was at my house, I have a recording studio in my house with drums, and he was playing drums, and he loved the drums. He couldn't hear them, but he could feel the vibrations, and he could feel the different vibrations between hitting a cymbal or hitting the bass drum or hitting one of the toms. And he would just take the drumstick and he would just hit everything and feel the vibrations. And that kind of stuff is fascinating to me.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Before, yeah, that's because I wanted to read your book, but I also wanted to talk about more what your experience, because
Sure.
See, the thing is, my channel, well, you're a lot of related to me, actually, a lot. Yeah, you have no idea, right? Um, see, my message has been, I've been trying to help a lot of law of attraction people to understand,
Hmm.
right? It's really it frustrates me to the point like I have to interview a lot of authors, best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, to be able to help them out, right? And it frustrated me where people think like you just say, where people think like you have to attract this objects, right?
Right,
And it frustrates me because you may attract it or you may all do all those things, but you're not going to be happy, right?
right, right.
Right. And I noticed that as I do the inner work, as I refine myself, because I hear you always, I hear what you say. You talk about the universe, you talk about the subconscious mind, and nobody talk about the subconscious mind. And they they like I hear one of your interviews, you said people want a quick fix, but it's nothing a quick fix, right?
Right,
And I keep hearing it over where people just want to this like instant
right,
gratification. Right?
right.
And it's like Amazon. Amazon have this instant gratification one day, um,
Hmm.
and people can't control themselves, right? And that's where my point for the law of attraction, because I am people are afraid of themselves. I think that's what it is because
Hmm.
they don't want to do the work because they find something that is icky, right? And they don't want to work it out. And
Right.
how did you, or how, I would say, how do you know about the subconscious mind in the universe? Because
I think it's something I've always known about. I've always been very intuitive. I've always read a lot of books. People used to tell me that I read voraciously, and I devour books. And a lot of times I will go and I will read a book, and then I'll put it away, and I'll put it away, and I'll think about the book, and then I'll go back and I'll really read the book, and really try and understand what the author was saying. People have asked me in the past what was the first book that I read that sort of opened my mind, and honestly, it was Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And people always go, wow, really? How did that, But because I was very young when I read it, I was way too young to be reading that book when I read it. But it opened my mind and it let me think about what if we did think we could do anything? What if we did believe that we could be anything? And that was the turning point for me as far as reading books. And after I started with that book, I started reading every other book on the subconscious mind or on transcendental meditation or anything that I could find.
so you're saying you read The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy?
Mhm.
Yes, I haven't. I haven't. Finally, I get the because I haven't like be able to talk with anyone to relate. Right? I haven't come across anyone that actually read The Power of the Subconscious Mind. That book and the Allen's Waltz has changed
Mhm.
my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, go ahead, continue, please.
No, it's amazing how few people in the United States have really read and understood many of these books. And when you travel and you go to other countries, you find more people that are more open-minded and more into talking about the subconscious mind. And we do have power over ourselves. And I think a lot of people, I think they're afraid to accept that they have the power over their own lives. How much easier is it to say, oh, I'm a victim and I can't do anything? And I think that's really what drives a lot of people is they've decided, they've made a choice to see themselves as a victim. Now, maybe they didn't do it consciously. I don't think anybody consciously chooses to be a victim. But I think on some level, people want to take the easy way out. They don't want to do the work. It's so much easier to just say, oh, well, why me? You know, I can't do anything because of my background or my family's background or where I live or any of that kind of stuff. And I think really the world would be just an amazingly better place if everyone would just take responsibility for themselves and for their own life. I used to do a lot of life coaching, and people would come to me and they would say, well, the person I'm in a relationship with just doesn't make me happy anymore. And I would say, well, there's the problem. Nobody can make you happy. You have to choose to be happy, and you have to be happy within yourself. If you're looking for anyone else for validation, you're not going to ever be really happy, because at one point or another, somebody, even your closest friends, are going to disappoint you. So that's the issue, is you have to take responsibility for your happiness.
Yeah, this is so true. There's so many times that my best friend, I'm sure that I disappoint him too, but he disappoint me more than often than not. I feel like when I talk to you, you're very open-minded, but you're intuitive. That's the thing that I like about you, because I noticed that. Because I noticed that a lot. I don't want to say it, but a lot of you read though. That's the thing. Like, because I observe and I hear psychic, they don't like to read, right? And but you do read.
Yeah,
That
a lot of them do. It depends on what they're reading. A lot of times, someone who is intuitive and who does readings for people for a living, they have to kind of look at what they're reading as they don't want the outside information. You know, they want to tune into the person. So if you're and I just recently have a friend who is local to me who is a psychic reader. And I don't like the term psychic reader, because I think intuitive is much more appealing to people. A lot of times when you hear, oh, that's a psychic or that's a card reader, you get the picture of the gypsy woman in the tent at the carnival. And these people are so much more than that. You know, it's so much more than that. But this person locally to me said she does a lot of readings for people who are in either they're authors or they're in film or they're in music. And these are people primarily that you would know who they were. And she has to be really careful what she reads, because she doesn't want to accidentally discover something about the person she's reading. You know, if you're skimming through, you know, the internet, a lot of times these pop-up things, you know, oh, this person is here and that person is there, and she has to be really careful not to do that. So she absolutely doesn't watch the news and doesn't get on the computer for days before one of these readings. And I thought, that's really dedication, you know, to her craft. That is really someone who is very dedicated to her craft. But I think reading, like anything else, is very individualized. You know, some people read like I do. I sometimes read 5 books at the same time, and I just go back and forth between them. There are people who read, you know, once every year, and it's very individual. So I don't think it's all psychic people. I don't think, you know, I think there's a balance.
Well, I mean, that's not well, because I have the worst experience for psychic reading, very worst. It's because the reason why I do this is because I was frustrated
Mm-hmm.
when the psychic reader, she was like pushing her message like I have to be this way because of how,
Right, right.
and but because she was telling she was doing the first psychic reading, and she didn't know about me much, and
Mm-hmm.
I was, you know, because she saw that I did interview with Bob Doy from the hit movie The Secret, and she was like saying all this stuff like, why are you seeking interviews, the answer is within, right? And I was like, whoa, I want to. I was like, whoa, and it was frustrating and it kind of hurt me. So I was
Right,
like, I wanted to do interviews because I want to understand people more. I wanted
right.
to help promote their book. I want to, and it's my dream, right? And and it kind of hurt me. And then she pushed her message about the law of attraction. And, you know, I've been studying for years and I know about the law of attraction. I know about it and I experience it too, you know. Um, that's what frustrates me. And, you know, she would promote her stuff. And I was like, whoa, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I believe that people have their own right to believe whatever they want, but
Right.
you cannot push people, but you can um, tell or say how your experience, and I will listen. So, but she didn't listen, like you have, right? And for mine, how I discovered the law of attraction or the spiritual, it's back in 2013, where I was aware that we have this power within us. When I was going through, you heard of the dark night of the soul, right?
Right. Yep.
Right. Yeah, I went through the dark night of the soul because my ex broke up with me. So it's basically I call it the shatter of the glass because we live in an illusion, right? With
Yep.
our own mind. We create that illusion in our mind and then we create it out into the world and see the ideas and belief it affect the lens which we see and how we interact with each other, right? So I start to notice there was a therapy who you have you read the Celestial Prophecy or something?
I have it. I don't think I've gotten all the way through it yet.
Uh,
I do have it. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, we were getting to synchronicity. So I had a therapy. She gave me that book, and she was teaching me how the self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever you think,
Right. Right.
right, positive. Yeah, basically, I start to notice. I never knew that before. When I changed my thought, my belief, my happiness, coincidence, good things happen around me, right? And but the thing is I took action and also during that time I discovered the law of attraction, and all the amazing book like the power of the subconscious mind and think and grow rich and all that. And then I would learn the subconscious and the my intuitive factor, right? I've become aware because I think that people don't use their intuition so much.
Oh, no, they don't. Not at all. You're right.
Yeah, because they push. We live in like the masculine society, right? They
Mhm.
push that energy instead of working together. I think it's about male and female working together. You know where they say thoughts are things.
Mhm.
You put the thoughts are the male. The emotion you have to put it in. Because I was reading. Have you read the book Neville Garter?
No, I don't think I've heard of that one. No.
Never Garter is the author where this book it actually put it very amazingly. Your conscious mind is a male component, while the subconscious mind is a womb. It's a creation. It's like
Right.
a woman pregnant, right? You put your thoughts into it in the womb of creation, they call it, and then you know, the Holy Trinity, and
Mhm.
then you impregnate the subconscious mind, and then it turn out your that's how you create your reality by taking you know whatever action that you know to your action. But that's um, but people forget. So, but anyway, sorry, that's too long.
Yeah, no, it's about balance. And you touched on it there. It's really about balance. You know, a lot of times people get so into positive thinking that they don't realize we are a full being. If you're only, I can't think a negative thought, I can't think a negative thought. If you're obsessing on not thinking negatively, you're programming your subconscious mind to think negatively because you're creating that fear. Where if you realize there's a balance, you know, we are light, we are dark, we are male, we are female, everyone is, and you bring that balance together, then you can move farther faster than trying to fight yourself. I think people get into an internal battle with themselves a lot of the times. And I know I did that. I have gone through a dark night of the soul, a couple of times now. And it was me fighting me, is what happened. And it was that fear that we all create within ourselves that we don't even realize we're doing. You know, for a long time, when I've been a writer for a long time, when my first book came out, I got an invitation to be interviewed on a TV station. And it's the same one I was on yesterday. But that first time, I turned them down 3 times because my internal fear was, I don't like to be in crowded rooms, and too many people kind of makes me nervous. And I didn't think I could do it. I thought that I would be nervous. And my fear of acting nervous on TV kept me from doing it. When I finally pushed through that barrier I had created for myself, it was so much fun. I loved it. I've been back on that show half a dozen times now. I loved it. But I kept myself from moving forward because I had built up, I can't do this in my own mind. And it was completely false. And I think all of us do that to an extent. We all do that. And when we realize that a little bit of fear is okay, and your positive self has to come in and say, you know what, you can push through this. And once we allow ourselves to feel the fear and then do it anyway, push through it, then you get a whole lot further and you're a lot happier. And what that does, and I've seen it with my coaching clients too, is it brings that confidence. And then we start building that love of life and that self-esteem and all of those wonderful qualities that we want in ourselves. That's how that happens, is just feeling it and moving through it. And you will believe whatever you tell yourself. If you tell yourself often enough that you are no good, eventually you're going to be no good. If you tell yourself often that you can do anything, you're going to be able to push through any fear. Yeah. It's that balance we have to look at within ourselves.
Well, yeah, you touched a lot on the bit question that I already but that's okay. I enjoy the talk. That's what I was gonna ask you, how you were, how did you feel about getting on the show? But you already touched on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a wonderful experience. If you allow yourself to have wonderful experiences, you will have wonderful experiences. Yes. Just don't hold yourself back. And I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah, a lot of time, well, because basically I know that a lot of people dislike what I try to. I never dismiss about the universe. That's not the whole thing. That what I'm trying to do. People, because I wanted to, because we have a lot of time, like we just said, a lot of time we have a myth in our head. Right. We create a myth, right? So I wanted to create a YouTube channel to create a movement. Be able to, it's like you just say, because I know that people have the like a quote, right? I know that because I interview an author who back then when I read his book, it's based on alchemy, and a lot of people have this misconception, because I've been talking this on my YouTube channel for a while. A quote is just mean hidden. It's not evil nor neither good or bad. It's just a word, but we have this negative connotation.
Right, right.
And it's the same thing as psychic. Now,
right, exactly.
People, it's like, see, for me, because I read lots of books. The reason, because people like kind of bash me on like why you're reading books, is because I'm destroying the myth that people have in their head.
Right.
Like witchcraft, people think that's the devil, evil, but it's not. You found out that it's very nature. It's
right.
Let's say it's part of nature, and it's an earth-based religion, and people have all this stuff, and psychic. People get afraid of psychic because they've imagined because I remember one time my friend, because it's the movie portrayed it to be, right?
Yeah.
My best friend, he used to watch this scary movie, and it was like, I guess the person's astral projecting out of the body, right? And he think that oh shoot yeah, the door, but he think like it's like somehow it's evil, right? But right. I remember I experienced astral projection. It isn't evil. It's just the energy, the energy within us, because there's many layers of the body, right, with the energy. And that's what my message is people have this weird stuff, like
right.
I for my channel, I wanted, not because I'm spiritual, because I used to be Buddhist. But I break out of that mindset because I heard. Have you heard of Bob Proctor?
Yep.
Yeah, I look up to that guy, and he was reading all the type of book like from the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, and then I start reading Hinduism. I love Hinduism for the
Yep.
fact their intuition, right? They use intuition, and that's what amazing part. But sorry about that. That was kind of too long.
No, you're fine.
Why did you before that? Why did you write your Lee? How you said it? Lee?
Laehli?
Yeah, Laehli and the Elephant. What
Yep.
message are you trying to convey to your readers?
You know, really, at its heart, it's a love story. It's a story about friendship and acceptance, about compassion. Laehli is a deaf child in Thailand, and she is kind of bullied about being different. And it's about shedding the light on a situation that people really don't give much thought to. I think I know personally, until my grandson was diagnosed as being deaf, I really hadn't given too much thought to what life was like for a deaf person. You know, I've known several deaf people through my life, and it just never occurred to me what their childhoods were like because I met them as adults. So in this story, it's shining a light on different things. You know, Laehli and the Elephants touches on bullying because she goes into the jungle because she's being bullied at home in her village. It touches on acceptance because not only ultimately do her villagers accept her, but the elephants accept her. The other animals in the jungle accept her. You know, there's compassion there because while Laehli is a different type of child, Ott, her elephant friend, the baby elephant, is a different kind of baby elephant because most of the baby elephants, they kind of stick close to mom. They stick close to their herds, and he kind of travels off. He kind of wanders off with Laehli. So they have adventures. It's a story about friendship. You know, when I was doing an interview a couple of weeks ago, and I said, it's a story about friendship. It's a story about being friends with the world, you know, with every being. It's about, here's who I am, who are you? And I said, ultimately, it's a story about love. It's about the love between Laehli's mother and Laehli, between Laehli and the elephants and the other animals in the jungle, between the villagers and the jungle, because they sustain each other and they live with each other and within each other. But it's a love story. And the interviewer a couple of weeks ago looked at me and said, it's also a love story between a grandmother and her deaf grandson. And I said, well, hadn't thought about that, but that's very true. It is. When he was diagnosed, being a writer, I immediately decided to look for children's books that featured a deaf character. I didn't find very many. So I wrote one. And while he is very fortunate because where he lives, he has access to what is widely described as the best school for the deaf in the country, I started looking at other cultures and other countries and what deaf people live like. What are their lives like? Do they have educational opportunities? And I found Thailand is one place where most deaf people never go to school. They don't really have a lot of opportunity. So that's why the story is set in Thailand. It's to shed a light on that situation. You know, my grandson's going to be fine. He's going to be perfectly fine. But there are deaf children around the world who may not have those opportunities that he's going to have. So that's where it came from. It came from just my eyes being open to a situation that I hadn't really given much thought about, and realizing that I'm a writer. I have a gift I can use to shed the light on this situation. Ultimately, as the books go on, we deal with the slash and burn deforestation problems that happen there. We go into conservation as a whole. We look at elephants in Africa, ultimately, as well as the Asian elephants in Thailand. So we touch on many different topics that I think people, I would like for people anyway to think about a little bit more. Think about how we see the world as a whole, and think about how we look at other sentient creatures, and look at how we perceive people who are differently abled. So that's what the whole thing is about. It's really love and acceptance and taking care of each other.
Thank you so much for creating that book. That's fun.
Whoop.
Yeah, it's my alarm. Thank you so much for creating that book. I think that's very beautiful creation that you have created.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because for me, I wanted to at least to make a positive change, not just in like interviews, but at least everywhere. At least to be able to create because you said you're using your gift, right?
Right.
Be able to change, to be able to shed on a light that it's you wanted to make it positive, and you wanted to impact and inspire people to look at
Right.
it. And that's because I when you said disable, because my mission also to be able to impact the special education, right? Because sometimes the special the education that we have, or the U.S., because I live in the U.S. too, and that my experience with school, I actually I know a lot of parents would hate it, but I'm honest, so I hate it. The reason
Right.
why I hate it is because special education, I was labeled in special education,
Right.
right? And I didn't find out, and they said I have learning disability. But I found out that, like, I found out that I could read a whole bunch of book and learn. Because the whole system of about the matrix, right? Yeah, and we live in the matrix. But people are like, like robots. They act like robots. Because
Right.
right, and I talk to it. It make me sad. It really make me sad when I talk to go, grocery shopping for my family. I would talk to cashiers, and I would talk to people who work there, and it hurt me because they're not really releasing their full potential.
Right.
Then they're just living based off someone says, or authority figures. I'm not so for my message is like parents, teachers, they're not all bad. It's just that it's the way that they mind their how program.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. It's the system. Yeah.
yeah. It really make me sad that. But thank you for writing the book, and I hope that the viewers or anyone would benefit from it. And you're absolutely right. I think that that's why I like um, seeing different culture. That
Right.
because sometimes people only fixate about, like, let's say the U.S., right? Or oh, it's like this. People, if you talk to people, why people will be like, uh, what's your may I ask what's your favorite food or anything like that?
Um, depends on the day, because where I live, I am kind of on the US-Mexican border, so I get an awful lot of amazing Mexican food, which I love. But I also like to cook, and I'm pretty much vegetarian, although, depending on the day, I might eat chicken or fish or something. Um, so it varies. This time of year, I eat a lot of fresh vegetables out of my garden, though. So
Okay. Well, no, that's not well. Because I was thinking about how people are afraid to try different things, right?
right,
Right. Because I remember it's like people think like they like the certain food, and that for me, because I look at it like because I'm Vietnamese, I'm Asian. but I was born in America. But you know, I love Vietnamese food, right?
Hmm.
But the thing is, we have to go closer to why do you like that food?
Right.
Right, because it's not because you chose it when you were little. It's because you were programmed. Because I noticed that because I was noticing that the reason why people like certain food is because they were programmed when they were young, but they never branch out to try different culture. Because you said there's many beautiful culture
Right.
because I'm into many culture like Japan, Korean, um, the Chinese, and all other culture. Because I
Hmm.
think it's just that they have beautiful culture, but sometimes they have strict. You know, they're very strict.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
right. And you know, people don't try. People are afraid.
It's so funny to me. We're talking about different cultures. How many people in the United States don't realize we have different cultures right here inside the US? Oftentimes I will travel doing interviews and doing events and things. And the first thing I always ask at whatever hotel I'm staying at is where do the locals eat? Because you will learn a lot about the city you're visiting if you go to local spots rather than the quote unquote hot spots that they market to tourists. San Antonio is a beautiful city, and I love San Antonio. And that is my favorite example because you can go 5 blocks in any direction in San Antonio and find a completely different culture. And when I stay there, I will always ask. And the first times I stay at a place, they will always try to direct me to the tourist traps. You know, oh, you want to go down on the river walk and you want to eat here and here and here. And those may not be the best places for you to eat. When keep asking and keep asking and keep asking, because you'll get a local hangout that tourists don't know about. And they will have the best food and the best service, and you will have the best time. But too often we're so close-minded that we don't want to try new things. We don't want to try different things. We want to be safe and stay where the tourists are supposed to be. And we compartmentalize ourselves. And it's like, well, I'm not in my home city, so I'm a tourist, therefore I must go where the tourists go. No, you don't. You know, find a local spot. You'll love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Well, yeah, because oftentimes, like for me, I was thinking about because oftentimes we want to feel safe because it's our
Right.
brain. It's not there to make you successful, but it's there to keep you safe. Because
Right.
often when I do the interview, people don't. Sometimes they don't want to do the interview because they think it's risky, right? But I try to build credibility up. It's not easy, but yeah. Um, what is your passion in life, and what do you love to do?
Animals. You know, it's when I was a little girl, I told people I wanted all the kittens and puppies in the world. And I was asked, well, how in the world are you going to take care of all of them? And I said, one at a time. And that was just my thinking, was that if you take it one at a time, you can take care of everybody. As an adult, I realized I cannot take care of all of the dogs and cats in the world, but I can still make a difference for the ones that I adopt or the ones that I foster or the ones that I rescue. Animals have always been my passion, combined with writing. I remember a time in my young life where I told a teacher that I wanted to travel around the world, saving all the animals and writing their life story. And they laughed at me, but I still kind of want to do that. You know, it's if I can combine animals and writing, I'm good. You know, I am good wherever.
Oh,
So yeah.
animal and writing. Okay. Thank you so much for that. For anyone who wants to become a writer, what do they need to do, and how do they get it published?
You know, what I always tell people, I've done a lot of events and a lot of book signings, and people, inevitably, somebody, usually several people, will come up to me and say, I want to be a writer. How do I do that? And I say, write. You want to be a filmmaker? Make a film. You want to be a musician? Make music. You know, it's pretty straightforward. To me, always being a writer, I don't honestly understand what it's like to not be able to write. So that's it, is start writing. Keep a journal. That's the easiest way to start. Keep a journal. If you've never written anything and you want to start trying to write, get a cheap spiral notebook at any dollar store and start writing, and just write about what you did that day. And eventually you realize you're writing a story. It's your story, but eventually you realize you are writing a story if you journal every day. And then you can kind of say, well, this would be more interesting if that had happened instead of this. And then you start fictionalizing your story, and pretty soon you've got a story. It's fairly straightforward process. Now, getting published is another thing. I've actually am working on a class right now about getting published. There are many options today that there didn't used to be. You can self-publish now for relatively no cost. The problem with that is people think, oh, I've written a book, I'm going to be famous. No, you're not. You're going to go into debt. It's going to be ugly, for a while. You have to do the work. Writing the book is the easy part. You have to, because competition is so stiff for publishers, and I have a publishing company, I turn down, out of every 5 submissions that people send me, I turn down probably 3 to 4 of them. And it's because you want to look for, not only is it a good story, but is that author going to do whatever it takes to promote that book? A lot of times the best story will not get a lot of attention because that author doesn't go out and publish it. I've seen it time after time after time. I've published some really awesome books that people really didn't buy. And I always reach out to those authors and say, well, you should do more events, or maybe do more interviews, or, get out there, call your local radio station, call your local, newspaper, get interviewed. And a lot of times people just don't realize that that's the author's responsibility. And it really is the author's responsibility. It's not anybody else's responsibility. People think, oh, well, I've been published, so it's the publisher. No, what the publisher does is protect your intellectual property and make your book available to bookstores. If you don't have a marketing person, you don't have a PR person, you're going to have to do all that yourself. And you can do it, but it takes some work. So writing the book is the easy part. It's the marketing that's a little tricky.
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the reason why most authors aren't. They forgot something. I noticed there's a lot of authors that don't. Because, okay, here's the thing that most authors don't understand, that they have YouTube. They have social media.
Right.
Like, they could have been creating content for their books. They keep showing up, keep creating. Because, YouTube videos are actually a video marketing platform too.
Right.
I mean, people, the average person wouldn't know about YouTube. They think that it's just there to consume because they're a consumer.
Right.
But YouTube, because I interview a lot of authors, like you said, interviews, right? Interviews also promote your books.
Yep.
Help promote your books, and but there aren't the understanding that people like. Yeah, I understand that one. I see it like a lot. I see it a lot. But how many? I'm curious on this one. How many? When you reject a person, do they ever come back to you again?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes the reason for rejection is plagiarism. You would be surprised, shocked probably, at how many times someone has submitted a story to me that, because I read a lot and because I have a nifty little way to check, if something's been published before, they will send me something that is either partially or almost entirely somebody else's work. That's a big thing. I don't know why people still do it, because it's so easy to check for that. But that's one of the things that I have to do as a publisher, is make sure their work is original. And sometimes I will accept somebody's work And then after they sign the contract, they will behave in a manner that I have to fire my author. I've had to do that a couple of times. When you get an author that doesn't cooperate, doesn't meet deadlines, that's a red flag for a publisher. And if you are sent rewrites to do, if you're sent something, this paragraph doesn't make sense, please revise it and send it back to me within a week. And 3 months later, you still don't have that back, that's a red flag. This person's not serious about getting their book out. So yeah, sometimes people will do a rewrite and they'll send it back in and everything is beautiful. Sometimes not so much. I wish more potential authors would realize it's a little bit of work to write a book before they start saying, I'm an author, I'm an author, I'm an author. I know a person who says they're an author and they've been saying that for 5 years and haven't completed their book yet. So, you know, those are kind of red flags to a publisher. So if you are a potential author and you're thinking about sending out your book or pitching your book to a publisher, make sure you are committed to following through.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I wanted to write a book, but I still haven't wrote it. I mean, I wrote it, but then I have to take it out because I feel like I don't have enough experience with that because I'm still doing my dream. I'm still, I guess you said, chasing the dream because I wanted to. Mine would be like what was the nonfiction book, right, for self-help. But yeah, I wanted to.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, sure.
Write the book. Just write it. We are all always learning. If you wait until you feel like you're an expert enough, you'll never finish the book. Just finish the book. Okay. Tell your story, tell it authentically, tell it honestly, and it'll be wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much. You also created a company. Why you create this company for authors that you want to publish their book? Why?
Ibby Lane Press is my publishing company.
Yes.
I did that because when I wrote my first book, I was pitching it to different publishing companies. And some of the prices they were quoting me to get my book published was ridiculous. And I laughed very hard because there are publishing companies. I'm a hybrid publisher. It is between self-publishing and traditional publishing. What a hybrid publisher does is we provide your registration, your copyright. We make your book accessible to bookstores everywhere. I have full worldwide distribution. I do not charge exorbitant fees. There are some vanity publishing companies who will charge you $3,500 to produce your book. That's ridiculous. And then you have to order so many books. I try to keep costs lower and I make payment arrangements with authors. Cost depends on the book, but I can guarantee you it's going to be far less than $3,500. I publish mostly nonfiction, although recently we've done children's books and a murder mystery, which the sequel will come out pretty soon. It's for the authors. Ibby Lane Press is a different kind of publishing company. I'm an author first, and I wanted to create a company where authors were more hands-on. If you want to design your cover art, yay, design your own cover art. If you want to hire your own editor, yay, hire your own editor. Most publishing companies take all of those decisions away from the author. You don't really have much say in how your book is presented. And I wanted to give that back to authors. So it's just a different perspective in publishing.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about, what was it? Wow, you really are taking this new thing to. I feel like you really do care about a lot of things. That's why you're creating it.
Sometimes I feel I care maybe too much, yes.
But thank you so much for doing what you do. I think that it can inspire people to do their dream. Or but the thing with, like, you said, they've been doing it, the author, for 5 years. um I feel like people forget that, um that we can say we're doing the dream,
Right.
but it's much harder to actually do the dream. Because I noticed that, um, as I reach out to authors, like you said, pitch, I get rejected, but I enjoy the rejection because it teaches me something that I never knew that I can do. It's because I didn't like rejection before. I didn't like rejection, um, but it's okay. But
You are doing a fabulous thing. And any author that turns down any opportunity to be interviewed is really probably not worth your time to interview.
yeah,
You
sorry.
have to change your perspective on that, because you are offering a very valuable service.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't know how much that means to me, because, like, I've read this amazing book. This one author that I really look up to. She don't know that. I didn't tell her that, and she's spiritual too. She do spiritual law of attraction, stuff like that,
Mhm.
and it hurt my heart that she blocked me, and it kind of like hurt, because that book means so much, because the it was when I was spiritually awakened. I read, I see that that we have a power within us, and I read her book, and it helped me so much, and I reach out to ask her so I can promote. Here's the thing that she don't understand: all the author that I interview, I'm grateful for them, and I will always promote their book, always. Like, Wayne, my friend Wade, um, and all the people I want to promote, and keep
Mhm.
promoting, never stop, because I wanted to give back, like I would give back to you. But thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. What does did we ever get touch on the what does success look like to you?
Success to me has changed over the years, and I think it will probably evolve through the rest of my life. At this point in my life, it is knowing I am using what I have to make a difference. It's being able to write the Laehil and the Elephant series and know that the feedback I've already gotten is very positive. I have children. I have a fan letter from a child. That is, to me, the epitome of success. Is, a child took the time to say, I love your book. What could be better than that? Seriously, what could be better than that?
Yeah, that's very amazing. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm grateful for that. Okay, guys, buy her book. Buy her book. Subscribe to my channel, like my video, and I'll see you guys next time.